Last class, we talked about confidence intervals. So what was the point of the confidence interval? What's the purpose? Yeah.
To accommodate for the difference between a sample population and between a sample and the population. Yeah.
Okay, good. More specifically, also, is that there's some number about the population that we want to know about. And in the example we talked about last time, that number was, for example, the percentage of all Americans that approves of the president. So we were trying to get some proportion of success for the entire population or for the country. So there was some number that you want to know about for the whole population. But if we had all the numbers for the population, it would be trivial to get that number. If we knew what everybody's response in the whole population was on whether they approved of the president, then it would be trivial to get the proportion of success for that population. But usually we don't know all the numbers, so we only know a subset of the numbers, so in the form of a sample. So the point of the confidence interval is that using that one sample and knowing the actual answer for the sample or the proportion of success for the sample, if we know what percentage of all Americans in that sample approve of the president, what would be the actual answer for the percentage of all Americans that approves of the president? So we're trying to estimate a number for the population, but using a sample. So we said that based on the sample, for example, if the sample told us that out of 100 people, let's say 41% in that sample approves of the president, can we just say that the true number for the population is exactly 41% of Americans who approve of the president? No, we can't. So just because we get one number for the sample doesn't mean the population has that same exact number. So the best conclusion we can make is not just a single number, it has to be an interval of possible numbers that the true number for the population actually lies within. And so the conclusion for the true population number will be in the form of this confidence interval, where the true number will be an interval of possible numbers, and it's usually expressed as this observed number plus or minus some margin of error, such as 3%. And this will be true a certain percentage of the time that corresponds with the given confidence level. So this is an example of a confidence interval, and the point of this is it's a conclusion that we make to estimate a number for the population using a sample. And this is the best type of conclusion that we can make based on what we're trying to do. And so, based on this, what does this mean? This means that the true number for the population will be somewhere inside this interval between 41 minus 3, which is 39, or 38, 38 to 44. So the true percentage of Americans that approve of the president will be somewhere between 38% to 44%. But this is only true 95% of the time. So 95% of the time, the true percentage of Americans approving of the president will be somewhere between 38% and 44%. We don't know whether it's closer to 38% or whether it's closer to 44%. It's just somewhere inside this interval. And that will be true 95% of the time. The remaining 5% of the time, the true answer could not could be somewhere completely outside this interval. So that's what we mean by a confidence interval. So this is a review. Any questions? So we said the point of a confidence interval was to estimate some number for the population using a sample. And so far, that number that we've talked about has a particular meaning. So far, we've talked about a percentage of Americans that approve of the president, or a percentage of success. Or you can always convert a percentage to a proportion, or a proportion of success. So the number that we've talked about so far was a proportion of success. But there are lots of other types of numbers that we care about, and not just proportions of successes. So in today's class, based on what we've already talked about, we'll extend this idea of confidence intervals into different types of numbers that we care about estimating for the population using a sample.